Happy last day of our Music in Our Schools One Spirit Week. Today, we are celebrating 90s music. Unlike most other eras, 90s music is kind of hard to pin down. Oddball and eclectic, the decade had several different styles that remain popular today. Pop, rap, and alternative music all became more popular in the 90s. The Macarena became one of the most popular dances in the 90s. Popular music in the 1990s continued the teen pop and dance pop trends that started in the 70s and 80s. Hip-hop grew and continued to be highly successful. Similar to the 1980s, rock music was also very popular in the 90s, but unlike the new wave and glam metal that dominated in the 80s, grunge, Britpop, industrial rock, and other alternative rock music emerged and took over as the most popular of the decade. With the breakthrough of bands such as Nirvana and the popularity of grunge and Britpop in the 1990s, alternative rock entered the musical mainstream, and many alternative bands became successful during the 1990s. During the 1990s, a new style of alternative music emerged, which combined elements of alternative rock with heavy metal. This new genre was called alternative metal. Bands like the Red Hot Chili Peppers were a part of this genre. A subgenre of alternative rock was grunge, and bands were becoming popular during the early 1990s. Grunge music was born out of the Pacific Northwest American states of Washington and Oregon in the 1980s. They delivered a more direct, less polished rock sound. Artists such as Nirvana and Pearl Jam brought alternative rock to popularity in 1991. During the mid-1990s, many grunge bands broke up or became less visible and less popular. Pop music also became more widely popular in the 90s. British girl group the Spice Girls managed to break the US market, becoming the most commercially successful British group in North America since the Beatles. Their impact brought about a widespread invasion of teen pop acts to the US chart, which had been dominated by grunge and hip-hop prior to the success of the Spice Girls. Between 1997 and 2000, American teen pop singers and groups including Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, 98 Degrees, Hanson, Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, Jessica Simpson, Mandy Moore, Jennifer Lopez, and Destiny's Child became more popular following the lead of the Spice Girls. Some of these bands would go on to be known as boy bands. Contemporary R&B was still popular with artists like Whitney Houston, Janet Jackson, and Michael Jackson and Mariah Carey. The 90s decade is notable for the extension of the rap music scene from New York City, which was the center of hip-hop culture throughout the 1980s, to other cities like Los Angeles, Atlanta, Chicago, and Memphis. Dr. Dre's 1992 album, The Chronic, provided a template for modern gangster rap. Dr. Dre also introduced a new artist known as Snoop Dogg, who helped dominate hip-hop during the early 1990s, alongside the notorious B.I.G. and others. You might remember some of those artists and songs from this year's Super Bowl halftime show. Electronic music that had risen in popularity in the 80s grew highly popular in the 90s, and several subgenres were created. With the explosive growth of computers, music technology, and the cost of equipment in the early 1990s allowed more musicians to produce electronic music. Even though initially most of the electronic music was dance music, the genre developed in the 1990s as musicians started to develop music that was not just for the dance floor, but also for home listening. This was usually slower music played throughout chill-out rooms or places of relaxation. The popularity of country music exploded in the early 1990s. Garth Brooks was one of the most popular country artists of this time and recorded primarily in a honky-tonk style, but frequently combined elements of soft rock and arena rock in his songs. During the 1990s, jazz and swing music made a reappearance from the swing revival and brought jazz into the pop charts. Popular jazz bands of the time were Big Bad Voodoo Daddy, Cherry Poppin' Daddies, and the Brian Setzer Orchestra. As you can see, music is constantly growing and musicians are creating new and different styles of music every day. There is a music style out there for everyone, so find what you like and start listening to more music.